Welcome to the webinar of the College
Morning.
of Pharmaceutical Sciences, or CPS for short. Who are we? We are your hosts of today. My name is Daphne Duro. I'm a tutor within the program. And Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm the middle picture here. Josh, I'm originally from the UK, but I've actually just graduated from College of Pharmaceutical Sciences this September. So I've now started my master's here in Utrecht in drug innovation.
And on chat, we have Patricia Leonardowicz. She's also a recent graduate, and she's an excellent candidate to answer all your questions that you can ask during our presentation. Well, it's very important that new drugs will be developed. As you probably are aware, some diseases do not have any drugs available. Other diseases, there are drugs available, but the drugs still have a lot of side effects. So it's very important that new or better drugs are developed, and that young people are trained to become a multidisciplinary scientist. But what does it mean to do drug research? What do you do during the day? So in this presentation, we will first give you some examples of drug research. Then we will tell you how CPS teaches you to do drug research. And then in the end, we will have a Q&A. So the most interesting or most often asked questions, they will be passed on to us, and we will answer them right here. So we start off with what it means to do drug research. And we will give you 3 examples. And those 3 examples are from research performed by students in the CPS program. So if you do CPS, you will really get a lot of opportunities already, right, to do research. And the first example is on antibiotic resistance. So antibiotics have been very helpful in curing diseases and thereby preventing nasty symptoms or nasty disease problems, and sometimes even prevented death. However, as you probably know, bacteria multiply very often, sometimes every 20 minutes, and with every multiplication, there is a chance that the bacteria acquires a mutation that will render them resistant to the antibiotic. And according to the last estimations in Europe, every year 33,000 people die because there is no antibiotic available that can treat their disease, their infection. And this is Tom, and in his 3rd year, he performed a research project, and in the group he joined, they work on a molecule that interferes with the cell wall of a bacterium. And you can imagine, if the wall of the bacterium is not built up properly, it will become leaky and the bacterium will not survive. So they are now more and more further investigating this approach, and it looks very promising. And you can imagine that this approach can target many different bacterial strains. And the next example is by Josh's own research, right?
Yeah. Partly, yeah. So this is correcting some of the genetic disorders. So this was one of my own projects that I performed during CPS, actually in my 2nd year already. We had to do this interesting research into how this rare disease, which is caused by a genetic mutation, how we can play with that using new technologies such as CRISPR-Cas, or recently we also did a project with engineered T cells, which are from the immune system. So it's really trying to use these new technologies in different ways to correct for diseases that actually maybe you've never heard of before. But that's the way that research is going now. It's going down to the genetic level to really look at specific parts of diseases.
And then also really curing instead of treating,
curing,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of the medicines we have now for these rare diseases, so cystic fibrosis, for example, a lot of the treatment is just clearing the mucus. So we're really interested in picking apart what is going wrong and finding specific cures for the things that are going wrong, essentially, rather than giving them a pain treatment or something like that, for example.
Yeah, this is also you on the slide.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this is something we learn not only in the lab, like Tom, so that's not something that you necessarily have to be perfect in, but it's also a lot of research, a lot of writing. You need to know how to pick up out your sources, how to evaluate, how to, be really precise in science. It's not necessarily always in the lab. It's also
combining knowledge from various sources.
You have to be really critical of where you're getting information from. And some other work I did was actually a treatment 2 months down the line from when I proposed the project. So that was quite exciting to know that what I was doing was really feasible.
Yeah.
So it's
that's really terrific.
Something I really enjoyed about it, actually.
And then we have the last example. It's on inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD. It's a collection of diseases where the bowel is inflamed. And two major diseases are Crohn's disease and colitis ulcerosa. The cause is not known, but they believe it's an autoimmune disease. So the immune cells that we have to fight off bacteria and viruses, in this case, are aimed at your own cells, or in the gut cells. So people, when they have a flare of their disease, they receive general immunosuppressants, so drugs that suppress the immune system. Mm-hmm. But you can imagine that those persons are then more vulnerable for infections. And also people receive just symptomatic pain killers. And here you see Amanda. She did an elective in her 3rd year, and she had a mouse model available. And that mouse model had colitis ulcerosa. So she isolated the guts from those colitis mice, and she isolated the gut and then stained the cells and looked under the microscope at various stages of the disease. So the idea is, if you know better which cell of the immune system is important at what stage, you could specifically target those cells and not completely suppress the immune system. So those were just 3 examples from CPS students, but imagine you aspire a career in drug research. What would you like to do? Would you like to unravel a disease mechanisms? For example, a lot is still unknown in Alzheimer's disease. Would you like to design a new drug molecule, maybe a vaccine or a real new molecule from scratch? Or maybe you want to be involved in developing a new route of drug administration. For example, people with diabetes, they would be thrilled if insulin does not need to be injected, but if there could be another way of getting insulin. So I hope we gave you a nice impression of
inspiration, maybe
of the vast array of possibilities in drug research. But how does CPS teach you to do drug research? That's the next part of our presentation. First, about the contents. CPS is a so-called multidisciplinary study, meaning you combine or you learn a lot of subjects. Because to create a new drug, that is really a multidisciplinary approach, and you need a lot of people will be involved. First of all, you need to know what is wrong, right? You need to compare healthy people with diseased people. This is biomedical sciences. Then if you know what is wrong, you would like to design a drug that can either stimulate or inhibit the target molecule. That is chemistry. Then if you have designed this new drug, you need to test if it's binding, if it's doing something in the cell. That is biology. As I said before, you need to think about how to administer your drug. Not all drugs can be taken orally, so you need to know the properties of the drug and think already about the route of administration. That is pharmacy. And lastly, if a drug is really promising after testing it on cells and in animals, you will need to test it first in healthy volunteers and then later in patient groups. So this is medicine. Now, I talked about pharmacy, biomedical sciences, and of course about CPS. What are the differences between these 3 bachelor programs? Well, all studies will teach you about the human body and what goes wrong in disease. CPS and pharmacy also have a big part on drugs, right? So CPS is really focused on designing new drugs that are not there yet, but are highly needed, whereas pharmacy focuses more on the existing drugs, the drugs that are already available. How do you make them? How do you check their quality? Which drug is preferred because sometimes there are many antihypertensives. Which one should you use? Depends on the patient, for example. So because of this attention to drugs, CPS and pharmacy both have, it's about 50-50 biology and chemistry, whereas biomedical sciences has relatively more biology. Biomedical sciences and CPS have in common that they train students to become a researcher in the biomedical field, whereas pharmacy has a focus, trains the students to become a pharmacist. Okay, Josh, would you, as you went through all the years of CPS?
Can now say I've been through all of these.
Yeah.
So, a bit more about the structure, really, of it's a 3-year bachelor program. So we'll start with the first year. That's maybe easiest. The first year really focuses on coming from the big, so population. So you see period 1 here is epidemiology. That's how do we look at drugs in the human population. And then we come down to the smaller scale of, well, what does an individual drug do in one person? So how does it come in? How does it go out? What does it do inside? And then the third period, the third focus is actually what is this molecule or something doing with the cells that it's interacting. So this is what do we actually want to target in each disease? This is very much a biomedical science subject, but in the setting of how can we use this to treat a disease with a new molecule maybe. And actually period 4, this is where you get to the designing your own molecules. So some really hardcore chemists, this is their focus that they really want to go for. So you actually take the opportunity to design new molecules to treat your own disease. So this is really a free project in the first year, and hopefully by that point you've experienced a bit of everything. And you can find out what you really like. After the first year comes the second year, and the first period is really focused on looking at how can we have these molecules interact. So how can we look at the immune system, for example, or the neuro system. So this is really picking apart the 2 disciplines in that. So you can have your immune system, you can use that to kill to treat disease, or you can use it against itself to treat cancer, for example.
Exactly, yeah.
Or you can look at the neuro side, which is Alzheimer's and dementia, all that area where
Parkinson's.
We don't quite understand what exactly is going wrong, but we can see things happening in the brain. For a lot of people, that's what interests them. So that's neuro and immunopharmacology, we call that. The second period is very much looking into, well, how can we measure things in the lab? So this is a lot of lab time. So all those people who like the lab, this is for you, basically. So you really learn the finer points of analysis. How do you know that this is the correct result? How can you prove something in the lab? So this is done in the context of a CSI case. That was actually one of the highlights of that year. So very intense.
But, can you elaborate a little bit on the CSI?
So on the Monday morning, you'll come into the lab, and Pamela Anderson's been murdered.
Okay. You don't get to see her body.
No, unfortunately not. But you actually, what can you measure in, for example, serum, urine, all these different things? Maybe there was foul play, maybe there was an overdose, something like that. So you can really, you then measure exactly what you want to know and decide on that what you conclude. So it's really trying to show you how to prove things, basically, in science. The third.
So you solved the murder?
Our group did, actually. I'll keep it a secret.
Was it foreplay? Oh, yes.
It's unfortunately a secret for those who haven't done it yet, but we did find the answer. The third course is actually something really up and coming. It's called biotechnology. So that's really how can we engineer the body to either act against itself. So in these new cancer treatments, we see a lot of bioengineering, especially with antibodies and proteins that we give to patients. So this new Alzheimer's drug, which has just come, which is just being sent to the FDA for approval.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's an antibody. So we learn all about how do these antibodies work, how do they interact with our immune system, why is that good, why is that bad, and why.
But also the CRISPR-Cas you were just talking about.
And also the CRISPR-Cas. So that project was actually from this course.
Oh yeah.
So we learn about all these new up and coming technologies and really how to exploit them or how to for our own gain, you know. And finally, to round off the second year, you have an elective course, which I'll come back to in a second, because also in your third year, you have more elective courses. So really CPS, after that 1.5, 2 years of courses where you're told what to do, you say, well, find what interests you. What do you like? What do you want to do? So for my personal choices, in the second year, I followed an advanced chemistry course, so like the one in the first year. And in the third year, I followed an advanced immunology course. So again, the immune system. And I also followed another epidemiology course, so drugs in the population, and also something called pharma and nutrition, which is how a food can alter how our body reacts to drugs or to illnesses. But really, it's up to you. If you find something that interests you more, if you find something that is really the thing you're into, you can do a minor, you can do a language. This is where you decide what your program is. So it's really up to you. You really
personalize here your CPS program.
So it comes off with your own little flair in the second and third year. But that's really something that you should find out along the way.
And actually, electives are also meant to find out if you think what you like.
Exactly.
If you do really like it.
It's a good opportunity to try something as well.
Exactly.
So it's not necessarily set in stone.
No,
again, if you like something, give it a try. And maybe the highlight of CPS for me, which I actually just finished in July, is the research project. So this is where you do 6 months of scientific research in the real world.
Real research in a real lab.
Research. So for me, my research project focused on the immune system. Surprise, surprise. I looked at how we can use certain dietary compounds. So this was a sugar that can be put into baby milk, for example, and how this can improve the immune system of the infants. So we needed an animal test, but I also ran some in vitro, so in the lab with cells, grow cells, and then I add these compounds to them to see how they react. And that was part of my 6 months, basically. Came out with a 20-30 page thesis. And it's your 6 months of your life. So it's quite something quite special to you. But
somehow everything comes together, right? From
eventually it does, in some way, So I used a bit of everything, really. How did I research things back in the second year? How do I prove something? All the immunopharmacology, all these different techniques, they all lead to this final project at the end of the third year. You can swap these around, so you actually do your research project before or your electives. That's all up to you, but I chose to do it that way around.
And then you graduated, yes.
And then you graduate after 3 years.
So this was about the content mostly, although you also taught about a little bit about how it was taught. But what are the teaching methods? People often ask, and it's difficult to answer because the courses are different. For example, the CSI course was a lot of lab work. Sometimes even within the course, it's very varied. But to give you a rough estimation, we would like to say that 1/3 is lectures, tutorials, and lab practicals. 1/3 is group work, and another third is self-study. So group work is quite important within CPS, and that is because research is a team effort. Developing a new drug, that is also really a team effort, a big team effort. So we think it's really important that you do group work to practice, first of all, collaboration, working together. Moreover, to apply the theory. So for example, you apply the theory of all the analytical techniques to solve a murder. And also you will practice many skills like independent thinking, writing, and presenting in English. But what do you do in group work? You work as a group, and CPS has at the most 50 students a year. So you work in small groups and you know all of your students. Sometimes you have been working together, many times.
Yeah, exactly.
But you, as a group of 5 students, you are assigned a project. That's not completely true, because usually you also have a vote in what you are investigating. It has to be in the confines of the course, of course.
You can obviously get a briefing.
Yes, exactly. But then as a group, you can decide what exactly you want to do. So it starts by first of all, find out the topic, and then asking the right question, and make it not too big, not too small. Then you will start investigating for solutions. And this will lead to creating new knowledge. For example, you will do a literature research, or you go into the lab, and you will have results. Those results will, of course, are not really, you need to discuss them. What do they mean? Are they as we expected? Very different? How can we explain? So you will reflect on your results. And if you have results, that obviously would actually lead to new questions, right?
Exactly.
So within this cycle, it's called inquiry-based learning, which is used in CPS a lot in the group project work. But it looks really similar to research.
For sure,
it's actually the research cycle, right?
Yeah,
where you continuously.
It's something you find out, especially in the internship as well.
Yeah.
You find that actually the way you've been learning is exactly the way the real world works.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
Strangely enough. A CPS is called an honors program. So all courses are at honors level. And that's mainly because the educational forms can be considered challenging. You are given freedom to choose what you like to investigate and how you want to do it. And you're not told exactly learn chapters X, Y, Z for your exam, right? So you need to be, that's why it's called an honors program. It means that we look for good and motivated students, but you don't need to be excellent or Einstein, not at all. Just if you're interested and motivated, then CPS, and you really aspire to work on projects with other people. Yeah. You think, oh, that's nice. Then CPS would be a really good program for you. Moreover, you have a lot of freedom as a student group, but you're not at all left alone. Even better, because CPS is a small program, teachers know you by name. I think.
For sure. Yeah. I think everyone
knows that you are Josh, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Josh. How are you? When you are working on your project, you will have regular meetings where you discuss, like for example, every step we showed you in the research cycle. I think almost every step you will meet with your supervisor and discuss how things are going. Are you stuck, or if it's going really well, think about new extra ideas. Yeah. And now, so we talked about the content of CPS, how CPS, which teaching methods we use. I think it's nice to illustrate 1 week from one course in the first year. And Josh did this course.
Let me think about it. I'll cast my mind back now to nearly 3 years. Really just a general overview of what one course looks like. They don't necessarily always look the same, but for this course, it's kind of pretty typical. So this is actually during the first year, the third period. This is where we learn what do we actually want to target on the cell. So this is exemplified by the first 6 weeks, where we learn all these different, you see the different numbers going from 1 through to 6. You learn all the details about these different parts of the cell. So you have the membrane, the receptors, the nucleus, what happens during certain different things. And these are all important in terms of what you want to design your drug to do. So if we, for example, in asthma, you inhale steroids, well, this is actually interacting with the nucleus of the cell.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to understand why that's doing such a thing and how we can use that technique for maybe a different disease. Yeah. So we need to learn all the theory about what is actually going on there. So that's the first 6 weeks. It's really theory-based. Week 7 is usually an exam. So this is based on the past 6 weeks. So there'll be questions about, well, what happens in the nucleus during transcription or translation, for example, or how does this bind and what does that mean? So this is really just testing if you've paid attention for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, if you understood the basics,
which
right?
hopefully you do.
And you usually passed.
I did. I passed all my courses the first time around. So there we go.
Actually, it's true for most courses.
Oh yeah. I'd say most people will pass it most times around.
If you work normally.
If you do your work.
If you do your work.
Exactly. And then after the exam is where we come to these group projects. So you have 3 weeks focused on these projects with a group of 5 or 6 maybe. And it will be based on something that you've learned before. So for example, the steroids, how can we use these in a different disease where we see other things happening in the cell? Well, use your knowledge about transcription, translation, all these other things, and apply that to the new setting. And you'll come out with a paper of maybe 20, 30 pages, which sounds like a lot, but between 6 people, it's not so bad. And again, more about the group project. It's all based on the theory that you've learned. There's probably not going to be something brand new out of nowhere. So this, don't be too worried about that. And in this specific course, it's a short article actually about one experiment that you do, but that's combining everything together about what happens with the receptors in the cell, and you'll run your own experiments.
And learning to write an article is important, right?
Exactly. And I think we'll hopefully get to that in a second.
Okay.
What does a typical week look like? Well, you obviously have your theory. What is a kinase inhibitor? Something that you'll hopefully know if you do CPS. And a bit of a tutorial about how can we use databases that are online for our own research. So here we have the protein database. We can look at the sequence of amino acids in a protein. Well, how can we use that for a drug? How can we mimic it if we're lacking protein, for example? And really just learning how to use the resources that we have as researchers to our advantage, let's say. That's on a Monday. So usually the lecture will be in the morning, tutorial in the afternoon. Tuesday, you'll then have your presentation about what you did last week in the lab, maybe. So you're usually in groups in the lab, again, teamwork, group work. So you have to present together and talk about your conclusions, your discussion, what went wrong, what went right, all these different things that build up and tell you, what am I actually researching about? And then again, back to your
helpful feedback, actually.
Some feedback as well. So your peers will ask you questions. You'll get.
Did you try this? Did you try
exactly. Everyone has tried something slightly different, so they can all help you in a different way. And then going back to your point about writing in English, it's very important to know how to write academically.
Because even for you, right?
Even for me, I came here and I was terrible at writing.
No, but I mean, it's a specific skill.
Academic, scientific. It's a very different skill to what you've learned in high school, maybe. So it's something we get a workshop on once a week. Maybe there'll be a tutorial about, well, how should you structure a research article? What kind of things should you do? What should you not do? General tips and tricks for writing an article and how to plan it, maybe. So it's all these different little skills that you can use in quite an organic way, hopefully. Wednesday, we then get a day at the lab, which actually was some of the highlights in the first year. You actually get to see how researchers work day to day. So it's funny to say, but they aren't always in the lab. They also have fun times with their department, for example, in the picture. But you go and see inside the lab, see what they're doing, talk to them, ask them questions, because that's ultimately where you want to be in a few years' time. So you need to have the contact with all these experts, basically.
That are doing cutting edge research.
They're doing the cutting edge, and actually they'll present to you about what they're doing at the moment. What have they found tricky?
And the idea is that you get an impression of the various labs that are available.
So you can then do a research project in the third year in one of those departments. And the lab tour. Thursday is usually a free day.
Nothing scheduled.
Nothing scheduled, but this is usually reserved for group work. So you'll hopefully have an assignment that week that you can work on with your friends, maybe for half the day, 3/4 of the day. Nothing strictly in the schedule about it, but it's your choice. And Friday is usually a wrap-up session. So you'll have maybe a quick quiz about just what you learned that week, or some more presentations about what you're going to do the next week. What does it entail? What do you need to plan? Trying to just get you a bit focused on the upcoming topic. But it's usually trying to harken back to the Monday about what did you start the week trying to learn, and did you learn that at the end of the week? Again, a really general picture, but for 75% of the cases, it's true.
So this was about CPS. What could you do after graduating for CPS? Well, I think more than 95% of our graduates continue with a master's program. And here we have an overview of what CPS graduates chose. And then drug innovation, as which you do now, Josh, is chosen by 41% of our graduates. It's a really nice follow-up of CPS. And yeah, maybe you can tell why you choose drug innovation.
So having done the research project, I kind of knew that research was something I wanted to do. So the obvious choice was a research-orientated master and focusing on medicine or new medicines. That's drug innovation, basically.
Yeah.
It's a bit more in-depth on the same thing. So something I found I liked. Basically.
Very good, yeah. 34% of our graduates choose another master program, and those master programs are mostly research-related, a research-based or related master. And that can be either in Utrecht, in another university in the Netherlands, or even abroad. We have people that went to Oxford, for example. 16% of our students choose science and business management. This is a 2-year program where you go deeper into science for 1 year, but for the other year, you're really introduced to some business courses, and you even do an internship in a company. 5% of our graduates choose pharmacy. So I said before, the focus of CPS is on to train students to become a researcher. But if you realize that you do not like research as you thought you would like it, you could, for example, still switch to pharmacy. And 4% of our students chose infection and immunity. So people really interested in the immune system. Then after your master, you will start a career, and it depends really on the master you chose. If you're really into research, you could become an academic researcher or researcher in the company. In the left bottom corner, you see the to-be-built EMA building.
I think it's next finished, actually.
Yeah, I checked actually yesterday. They're working still on it. And because of Brexit, it moved, the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, moved to Amsterdam. So this is an agency, it's like the European FDA. They say, we believe they can allow a drug on the market if it's safe and effective enough. You could become a science teacher, really a lot of possibilities. And from our graduates, these are just a few, but many more are now, after CPS and a master, they are now doing a PhD. This is, then you become a doctor. It takes you 4 years, but you get paid for the first time in your life. And you learn, it's really a rigorous science education. And well, the fields are really, really different from either neurology to mass spectrometry to rheumatology. Some stayed in Utrecht, some people went to Amsterdam, Jolette went to Oxford. So yeah, really, we can't say where you will end up. Then we had quite some graduates that continued with science and business management. So they are now in business.
There you go.
So they are in a pharmaceutical company or in consultancy. Yeah, they are in a lot, and they are happy over there. And then we have a few examples of other professions. For example, Romy on the left, she works at the Dutch Medicines Agency. Cedric is now a hospital pharmacy resident. And Marielle, she is doing a medical master. So this is a very special master where you become both a doctor and a clinical researcher. Well, we are here in the studio in Utrecht, down on the university campus, and maybe you are at home watching us or later on. But how is life in Utrecht?
Good question. It's obviously a big decision, especially if you're coming from abroad, sure. As many as you are, as we've seen.
Yeah.
What is the city like? What's it like here on the campus?
Yeah.
For me, my past 3 years, I've absolutely loved it.
You stayed, so.
I don't think I would choose anywhere else.
Oh, really?
No, I was very happy with my decision.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's obviously a big factor in whether you'd come here. I think we've got some, a bit about the city itself. It's amazing. The Netherlands is one of the most fluent countries in English outside of the United Kingdom or the United States or Canada. So actually it's super easy to get about day to day. You can go to the supermarket, do things in English, which maybe isn't possible in a different country. It's also Utrecht is the heart of the Netherlands.
Yeah. So you shouldn't have learned Dutch.
I shouldn't have learned Dutch, but I did.
But you can. Yeah.
I thought it was important to try and fit in.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily.
It's really,
of
nice
course,
effort. Yeah.
It's in the heart of the Netherlands. So actually, we're only 20 minutes away from Amsterdam by train. You can also cycle to Amsterdam if you really like.
My aunt does. Yeah.
We're also not that far from Rotterdam or other cities that are big hearts of Europe.
They actually consider the Randstad is like one big
city where you can go between in the same time it takes to cross London or something. It's crazy that the Dutch have managed to do this, but it makes it a great city to actually live in. There's so many cultural things here. We have the old city center, we have the Dom Tower, we have the museums in the center. But then also going back to this, the Netherlands is a big city, a big country of culture. So you're not far away from all the big museums in Amsterdam. In Rotterdam, you have all the nightlife, all these exciting things. And you're actually only 20 minutes, half an hour away being in Utrecht. So it's a perfect location. And they do everything by bike, which actually sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
but is true. They do everything by bike. So I'd say I spent 75% of the last 3 years on 2 wheels. It's how you get to university. It's how you come back. It's really a nice lifestyle to have. I'd say nothing. Yeah, again, no other choice I would have made than to come here. The university itself, there are actually 3 parts. There's the city center, which we just discussed, and you saw a picture of. There's then the science park, which is where we are now, Utrecht Science Park. And there's also, they have their own private campus for the university college, but being a CPS student, you don't usually go there. But the science park is where it's happening and where all the companies and the collaborations happen between this science and the private world, for example. And that's, for example, the 3 big buildings
that are important for CPS.
CPS. So the Victor J. Koningsberger in the middle. That's where all the teaching labs are. So I spent a lot of my days there in the past 3 years. David de Wiet building. That's where the pharmacology, pharmaceutics, chemical biology and drug discovery, catalysis groups, all these epidemiology, all these different disciplines within CPS are located. So actually, you'll have a lecture and then 2 floors up, someone's doing a crazy experiment about something you've just learned about. So it's really bringing all these different things together in one place. The Minarts building, also a really nice location, some classrooms and that kind of thing. And also us here in the library, one of the prettiest buildings on the science park, I'd say. But yeah, it's really the perfect location to do all these different parts of science, all these different things in one place. It's very, a good choice.
Then back to serious business. If you decide to apply for CPS, which we of course hope if you're motivated for a program, we do have entry requirements. Those are chemistry, mathematics and physics. Now, 2 remarks. No biology is required, whereas you really remembered correctly that CPS is 50-50 biology, chemistry. So if you do have biology, that's really helpful, of course. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we do ask for physics instead of biology. Yeah, I can't really explain. It has to do with how the program is organized. We won't go into detail. But so you do need physics, really, but it's not a big part of the program, right? In the study, I mean, in CPS.
No, for sure no. It's merely a requirement.
It's as silly as it is. And of course, because CPS is a fully English taught program, you need to prove to be fluent in, or not fluent, proficient in English. Then we have a selection procedure, and it actually consists of 2 steps. It starts with a questionnaire, which is a really elaborate, almost like a paper interview, but you can take the time to, you can save your answers, think about it. There's no hurry to fill in the answers. And you should see it as a nice opportunity to express why you would like CPS. Just if you're motivated, don't worry about your answers. You don't need to be perfect. No. Just be honest. What are you interested in? Why would you like to do CPS? We also ask for a reference letter by somebody that knows you in the school setting. And then step 2, if you hand in the questionnaire and the reference letter in time, then you will be invited to write an essay. And with the invitation, we will send you 3 articles that are related to topics are related to CPS from the Scientific American. And then if you live abroad, we will schedule 10 days later an appointment where you can write your essay. And we will send you some questions that you can answer.
Answer by email.
You
don't have to come here, which I personally didn't do.
Yeah. And if the time doesn't suit you, you can let us know and we'll make sure that it will be all right. Maybe another nice thing to tell is that if you are a good candidate, so far people have been selected for the program, right? Yeah. If you are fulfilling, you are a good match, you can be very hopeful that you will be selected. Then another important deadline, and that is really from the Dutch government, you have to apply before January next year, 15th of January next year, which is pretty soon actually. But keep this please in mind, otherwise you lose a year. We give you here a link to studyinholland.nl scholarships. We do have to be honest, there are not a lot of scholarships, but of course you want to check it out.
Always worth looking.
Yeah, and another tip could be wherever you're from, some countries, home countries, also provide scholarships. So
that's true.
Also check out your own home country's possibilities for scholarships. And then we are at a Q&A.
That's all the serious business.
So we'll see if you have questions.
I think we have a question here from Xanthia.
For Josh?
That's for me, apparently. Yeah. She says, currently I'm studying here. If they are answering questions at the end, yes, we are. I'd love to know the course, how it compares to A-level biology and A-level chemistry.
Oh, you might know.
I did A-level biology and A-level chemistry. I was just checking if I did them. And really the biology, I'd say, is very different. That's why it's maybe not a requirement, actually. We don't really care about animals and, the life cycle and that kind of thing. It's more the theory of, well, there's cells and all these different things in them. That's what's more important. So it's really maybe a quarter of the content where you really dive deep into it throughout the 3 years. So it's really not that comparable with biology maybe, but the chemistry, I'd say all the organic chemistry I learned in high school, and then some people hadn't had it when they came here. So actually having A-level chemistry was a huge advantage because we actually learn about a lot of the reaction mechanisms.
Yeah.
What's going on in different reactions. So as far as A-level chemistry goes, I'd say it's pretty comparable.
And I would like to add that we have had some students without biology that entered the program.
For sure, yeah, in my year as well.
And for myself, I studied the regular pharmacy without biology, and we all managed.
Yeah, I'd say
it's nice if you have it, of course.
It's nothing you can't learn as you go. It's like I said, it's only a very small part of this biology thing because in general biology, you're focusing on a lot of different aspects, whereas we're only interested in human biology and then actually cellular biology is the big thing. So it's really not a big loss, but also not a hindrance, let's say.
And I know from Dutch students that enter the program and they think before they start, I really like biology. They realize studying CPS that actually they like chemistry more. And the other way around. I don't know if that's typical for the Dutch students.
I don't know. I think I personally went in not having a preference, maybe, and learned I was a bit more interested in the immune system, so a bit more biological. But still, doing chemistry was not bad. No. But I think you kind of discover a bit more about what really does interesting you.
Yeah, that's actually where the study is also a bit for.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're really not sure between biology or chemistry, or
you will find out. Yeah.
You'll find out. And if you're really interested in drug-focused things and finding new treatments, this is it. Question for Daphne, maybe. This is from Pham. Hello, I'm currently studying in Vietnam. Hello, Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know if there are any entrance exams for the students.
Oh, we did have students from Vietnam in the past. But all questions about, because we have so many different diplomas, so all the evaluation of your diploma will be done by our international admissions office. So maybe Patricia can also send you the link to the site and give them your email address. And so the whole university has a specialized department that knows everything about diplomas and knows what we want, and then they can tell you how to reach our entry levels.
Yeah. So yeah,
but it should be. We did have we have 1 or 2 students from Vietnam in our program, so it's certainly possible.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is impossible.
No.
It's all about getting in there on time.
Yeah.
And, send an email and kick it off rather than wait to be asked.
That's always good. Yeah.
For a question from Maria, I think, maybe sent in a little while ago.
Oh yeah.
But she asked, are you able to get a pharmacy diploma after you complete CPS?
Yeah, we have a bachelor in pharmacy and we have a master's program in pharmacy. If you want to work in a pharmacy store, you need to have both the bachelor and the master. So if you start CPS and you realize very early on, no science for me, no research. Then if you do the right electives, you will not lose any time. You will graduate from CPS within 3 years, and at the same time be eligible to enter the pharmacy master program. Straight away. Sometimes if you realize it a little bit later, you might have some extra year or half a year to do the
pre-masters, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think I know a couple of people who did that actually.
And we also have the other way around, that we have bachelor students in pharmacy that realize no pharmacy for me. It's a bit like me. I did not do the pharmacy master. You can then do a research master. So
it's a little bit flexible.
Yeah. But we just wish you.
But technically, you're not qualified to be a pharmacist after CPS.
No, but that's also true for bachelor pharmacy. You do need the master.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah.
Maurits asks, how did you find the application procedure? So that was
it's for you.
For me, apparently, again.
Josh, answer
this.
Yeah.
Actually, it's something that I took a couple of months really to write it, not continuously. Of course, I maybe looked at it on the weekend, wrote a few more sentences, just piece by piece, thought about what I wanted to say. Like Daphne said, it's really showing that you have an interest in science and you'd like to take this further. What does and doesn't interest you? Why do you want to do group work maybe? Right? How do you work in a group? Examples of where you've done research as well. That's also really important to include. So it's really, it doesn't have to be, you don't want to be there on the deadline on the 15th of January typing away madly. Just take your time to do it. It took me personally a couple of months, but it can take some people 1 week. It's really not requirement to take months on it.
Yeah, I think it's important to convince us that you are a good match, and then then hopefully you also realize, oh yeah, this is a really nice program.
Yeah.
And you can also let other people, like your parents or friends, take a look at your answers. Like, do you recognize me in this answer?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do I forget something about myself? Before finishing,
I think we're about to finish off.
So we have a website. If you didn't come across it yet, probably you did because you signed up for the webinar. If you look under contact, you can find our study advisor. And another important thing to mention is that we have the Bachelor Open Days on the 15th and 16th of November, a Friday and a Saturday. Then you can meet a lot of CPS students. I think they are the best because they know what it's about, how it really is. So we hope to see you there or any other time.
So have
Thank
a good
you for
evening, good night, good morning, good whatever.
Yeah, where you are, and hope to see you again.
Yeah.